After Effects has type tools that work in a similar fashion to other applications. We have the ability to create different sizes, different spacing, we can color the text, and we can even justify it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that we have this type tool here, but I'm in a new comp and we don't really have anything to work with. So I'll go to Composition, New Composition. Go ahead and say OK, and now all the tools are ready to roll. I'll click on my type tool, and then I'll click one time in my workspace, and you'll see this I-beam here. This is the insertion point. Now, mine is going to remember the last size I used when I use this tool. That's why this insertion point is 365 pixels. I'm actually going to grab my character panel, and I'll tear this guy off, and I'm going to dock it right here. And I'll nudge these guys out of my way so we can focus on these tools. So I'm going to type a word. I'll just put we. Okay, so I'll just type here. And I'm going to move this down with my selection tool. I can resize this text by grabbing one of these handles, and I'll move it over. Now, if I forgot something like an exclamation point, like wee, like we're going on a roller coaster, I can double click in this text even with this tool, and it will make it active again. I can just move my cursor to the end, and now I can enter the exclamation point. Once again, I can deselect everything by clicking away from it. And the cool thing about when you use the text tool is it creates a layer for you named exactly what you just typed. So we see we right here that matches this we. So now that we have those, let's talk about how we can edit the text a little bit. Well, one of the first things we can do is change the color. All you have to do is make sure the type is selected, click on the swatch one time, and you can change the color. Click OK. You can also click on it again and enter specific values if you need to, in RGB and in HSB as well, and even in hexadecimal. I'll go ahead and cancel that. If we want to change the font, we can go right here and click on this little drop down, and we can choose from a wide variety of font families. So I'm going to choose, let's see here, Onyx, and you notice the text changes. I'll go ahead and scale that. We also have the ability to affect a style. So if I click on this little drop down, you'll notice that we only have the option of regular for Onyx. So all fonts don't have a style associated with them. I'm going to go back here again, and I'm going to go to, let's say, an Arial. Let me see if I can find it. There's a billion fonts here. I'll choose an Arial Black. And now if I go to this drop down, we still have nothing here. So let me try a Garamond. And now we have some styles. We have regular, italic, and bold. The good news is, even if the font you've selected doesn't have a style, we have faux or fake versions of them, which live down here. So we have our faux bold, faux italics. Faux is such a fun word. We also have the ability to work with all caps, small caps, superscript, and subscript. And this is really cool when you're doing things like E equals MC squared, so you can have the superscript and the subscript for those kinds of formulas. So we talked about the font, we talked about the style. Now we can talk about how we can scale the type. And as you saw, I was doing it manually by grabbing one of these corners. But you can also scrub this hot text here, left or right, to increase or decrease the size of the text. If you have more than one sentence, then you could use something called leading. Leading is going to change the spacing in between each sentence you have in your paragraph. There is a rule of thumb as far as the way the human eye can comfortably read multiple sentences, and that is the size of your text should have a leading that's 2 points greater. So since our text is 363 pixels, which is pretty large when you think about it, most magazines and newspapers have 10 point to 12 point text, 11 of course too. So you would have, in this case, 365 as far as the difference between the sentences. We also have the ability to work with something called tracking, which is the spacing in between selected characters. You also have the ability to do something called a vertical scale, so we can scrub to make that squash or stretch. We have a horizontal scale. And both of these, by the way, are the same as pretty much what I was doing earlier, by grabbing these guys and manually doing that. So that's a quick look at how you can use the basic type tools. But we also have one more panel I want to bring your attention to. The paragraph panel works in a similar fashion as it would in Microsoft Word. And all these guys kind of got squashed up. We have the ability to align our text left, centered, and right. And when we have a lot of sentences, we can also choose something called justification. Justification is when the application will try to give you some even spacing in between all the words and the letters and kind of make it look kind of nice and neat in the center. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's why you have so many different options here. So those are the type tools that we'll be using when we continue with text inside of After Effects.